Okay, so before we get started, this will be the project that we are going to create. Using SteamVR, we're going to define initially a building for the showroom, and we're going to add some cars within the showroom and add various animation to those. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Let me just make sure that it's currently recording. So yeah, it's recording. So I'm gonna create a new project. I'm gonna go with a 3D core, project name VR underline project. So create a default 3D core project. And the first step is to add the SteamVR asset, and we're gonna build on that. So currently the project is being built. This should take, I don't know, roughly around 2 minutes, depending on your computer specifications. Okay, so this will be the empty project, and I'm gonna go up on Window, Asset Store, and I will search online. And over here we will need to search for the SteamVR package. It's important that you will be logged into Unity as a store, and we're gonna see the SteamVR plugin. I'm gonna type it in again, SteamVR, and this will be the plugin. It should load. For some reason it's quite slow. Let's see. SteamVR plugin from Valve Corporation. Okay, and for the first time you're gonna have over here add to my assets. For me, I'm gonna have this directly open in Unity. I'm gonna click on that, and we're gonna see that the package manager from Unity, so this option has been loaded, and we're gonna have this SteamVR plugin. I'm gonna have this imported. Import all those files within the asset. And we are going to build on the existing scene. We see various files within the package loaded. Currently there are some WAV files for the longbow, some prefabs, some C# scripts. Okay, and when you have all those imported, we're gonna see that Unity will have some changes. For example, we're gonna have Unity XR and a VR loader applied. So you open VR. I'm gonna accept all the changes that the plugin will have within Unity, and we can close these two tabs. I'm gonna go in the scene, and I'm gonna search for the scene name interaction. Interaction example, this will be the scene. By default, if I'm gonna play simulate, so the button at the top, we're gonna see that if the VR headset is not connected to the device, it should have the standard WASD movement. I'm gonna go onto the game scene, and this will be that. I see that for me it's trying to launch this, so I'm gonna have this unpaused, and I can manipulate the camera using those keys, or you can use the arrow keys to have the camera translated. And we see right mouse click to rotate the camera, and left click is for standard interaction, but for some of the elements we can only, let's say, grab those. We cannot interact fully with those without the VR headset. Okay, I see that now the scene has stuck. I'm gonna unpause that, and the scene should resume. Every time I try to interact with some of those that require a VR headset, we see that SteamVR plugin is trying to load. So I'm gonna go interact with some other stuffs, like these primitives. Or if I'm gonna press this button, I'm gonna see that object reference not set as an instance of an object. So we have another animation that is not linked within the template. Okay, so for the first step, I'm gonna go onto the scene, and I'm gonna scale the bottom floor. So it will be over here, environment floor. I'm gonna scale it from 4 up to 10. And now I will bring in the 3D model of the showroom. So I already have those prepared over here on my desktop. These are the files that you also have access to. So desktop L7, we have this building. So to get started, I'm gonna open 3ds Max. I'm gonna start working on the building. So during our classes, we have textured this building. I'm only gonna show how you can adjust some of the textures over here. I'm not gonna go and texture everything. So this will be the building. We see 13.2 megabytes. If I will double click that file, I see that the 3D viewer from Windows will start, and this will be that showroom building. I'm gonna drag and drop it over here, and I will position it with a left click. After that, I will press Alt W to maximize the viewport. And over here we have the possibility to add various textures. So we can use the layers in order to better organize the scene. I'm gonna go over here on those two arrows, right click, go up to layers, and with the objects at the top selected, for example this, I'm gonna create a new layer. I will select that layer, right click on that, I will call this roof, and by default I will want all the elements within the roof to be hidden. So I will also add this to the roof selection. So mainly I'm just gonna select the elements at the top, and I'm gonna have those selected so I can have a better overview of the interior. Okay, now for the bottom, I'm gonna search for some reference. Let's see, showroom references. We're gonna search for some images, and we're gonna have some. I'm also gonna add a car showroom because not all the showrooms that were listed were for cars. Okay, I'm gonna go for something like this. So on the bottom, I'm gonna go for a tileable texture. I can go to polyheaven.com on textures, and I will select a floor, something that will be used indoors, and let's go for something clean. So we see a laminated floor over here. Maybe since we have cars, we can go for something like marbles or floor tiles, but I'm gonna go with this marble 01. Over here, if you're gonna click on those three arrows, you have the possibility to only select some specific maps. For example, we are going to make use of this diffuse. It's currently set for a 4K resolution for me. If I'm going to click on the download, I'm going to see that the download for that file should start. And over here I will have that marble texture, which will be this one. So I will have that copy, go back to 3ds Max, press M for material library. Now I have installed 3ds Max 2024, and I see that the slate material is by default the default one. So I'm going to go on mode, and I will go on the compact, and I will choose to swap this physical material to a standard legacy that will translate Unity one-on-one. So I pressed F10. We're going to have the render setup, and all the way at the bottom, assign renderer, I will swap the production and the active shade to scanline. I will save this as default, and now I can choose an empty material, go on physical material, and have that selected as a standard legacy material. I'm going to go for the diffuse map. So over here where we have none, I'm going to type in that I want to add a bitmap, so maps general bitmap, and over here I'm going to add that texture that we just downloaded, so I know that it will be this marble. And now I'm going to select the bottom and I will apply that texture. And we're going to see that by default we are not going to have the UV mapping, so the material has been applied, but we don't have the mapping information. In order to do that, we're going to have that selected, go to modify, and I'm going to type in on the modify list a UV map, UVW map. And now we're going to see that texture tiled, so I'm going to tile this 5 by 5. It should look something like this. So since we are on planar, I'm going to go with 5 by 5, but if I'm going to stick it with planar, I'm going to see that on this side the texture will be stretched, so I have the possibility to go to box texture, and I'm going to increase this texture over here. Also, I just reinstalled 3ds Max 2024, so my units are not set, so I'm going to press F10. No, sorry, not F10, customize, unit setup. We see that I'm using generic units. So I'm going to go to metric, millimeters, and for the system, I'm going to go for millimeters. I'm going to click OK. And now if I will create a box, okay, we see that objects cannot be created on a hidden layer. I'm going to swap from that roof back to the default one, and we're gonna see, so the showroom will be quite small. So if I would open this showroom again, it's important that we're gonna position a car inside of it. So for example, on this cylinder I will want to have a car position. So if I'm gonna go with auto grid somewhere like this, we're gonna see that we're gonna have a length, let's say, so the length of the car, let's add 5000, the width 2000, and for the height I'm gonna go something like this. So this will be roughly the size of a large car. And we're gonna see that we're gonna need to scale our reference. So since I already added the map on this one, but the file unit setup was not set up since I just reinstalled 3ds Max 2024, I'm gonna have all those deleted minus that rectangle, and I'm gonna select all of this, group it, I'm gonna call it building, and I'm gonna have this scaled all the way up. Okay, it's important also to get all those hidden ones. So before I'm gonna start scaling those, I will need to make sure that also the roof will be selected. Have this group building, and I'm gonna scale it up, so something like this. I'm gonna make it even larger, and now if I'm gonna hide the roof, I will have this reference, and I will want to measure that, so ungroup that. I'm going to position this center to center, and we see that a car with a length of 5 should be able to be positioned on one of those cylinders. So this should be the scale of the showroom. If you're not setting the scale directly in 3ds Max, you can do that in Unity also. So I would also ask you to add different textures. For example, maybe I would also want to add some brick textures to this. So I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to search for this, brick textures seamless. I'm going to go for image tools, and I'm going to search for a larger one, and let's see what texture should we use for that. We see some websites that are not free. Let's see. This one is not the best as a texture, so I'm going to go with this one. Open a new image. I see that this will have the watermark. So try to use some textures that are not watermarked. For example, this one. Open a new image. You're going to see that this will be tileable, so I'm going to save this. I will call this brick texture. Going in 3ds Max, we're going to select a new empty slot for the material editor. You can also add multiple by cycling those. So for the second material, I'm going to go with a standard legacy again, diffuse. I'm going to choose a bitmap over here, and again I'm going to search for that brick texture, which will be this one, and I will position the brick texture on this side. We're going to see that again we're going to have a scaling problem. We can either go directly over here with 5 or 5. There are also some clipping visuals, like you see some black areas on some of the elements, but those will not be a problem within Unity. So you can just map the building with the texture. You can choose a different one. I highly encourage you to do that. And also do the same for the others. What I see over here, I see that the texture is not properly aligned. So I can have that selected. Go again with UV map. I'm gonna set this as a box, and now I'll have the possibility to either scale that, but we see that as soon as I apply the UV map, the tiles are positioned like this. Okay, so the other textures should be fine. Now to move the 3D model to Unity, I will have that roof unchecked. I highly encourage you to texture everything. You're gonna have this cube 0. I can either hide it, or we're gonna hide it directly within Unity. That is also your decision. For now I'm gonna have this unchecked, and I'm gonna export this scene to Unity. So I have all this selected minus the door. File, export selected. I'm gonna call this Showroom, and it's important to have some checks. So over here, embed media, we want to have this checked in order to have the texture transferred to Unity. Okay, so we have that file loaded. I'm gonna go over here within the asset. I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call this 3D models, and within that one I'm gonna drag and drop the showroom. So within Unity, have that drag and drop. We see that we get a preview on the bottom. We don't have any textures, but if I'm gonna click on extract textures, it will directly select the open folder. So just click select folder, and now the texture should be unpacked, and we're gonna see those. And I'm gonna position the showroom somewhere over here. So in my case, the scale for this is okay. Over here we have some clipping on the outside, but mainly we're gonna focus on the inside. So don't worry about that. The problem here is that this mesh is slightly over there overlapped, so you can go and have it slightly scaled. So for example, if you would want to, we can make this slightly smaller. Something like this should fix that. So we're no longer gonna have that clipping, but that shouldn't be a problem since mostly we are gonna be inside the showroom. Now, in order to change the starting location, we can select within the hierarchy the player, and we can have this translated to the showroom. We can move it with F, we can zoom on that, and this will be the default starting area for our VR application. So maybe you would like to start somewhere over here. I'm just gonna save this. I'm gonna call it showroom. And if I will start the simulation, we're gonna see that we're gonna be positioned. So currently it's trying to adjust the height of the user. I'm gonna go with accept all. And if I'm gonna swap to the game and have that unpaused, we're gonna see that we have the model just as we had it in 3ds Max, texture and added over here. With this in position, it's important also to add some lights, but initially I'm gonna bring in a car, do some animation for that, and afterwards have those light up within the scene. So I'm gonna reset this. Within your final project, please consider texturing multiple elements over here. Within the interior, maybe the stairs. Over here you can select various objects, and if you're gonna press Z, it will be the same just as you would frame something in Unity. So over here we have F for let's say zooming in an object, and in 3ds Max this will be done with Z. Okay, so we are done with the showroom. We are gonna go further with the car. It will be this car from folder L7. I'm gonna have the car model loaded, and for this car we see that we don't have the textures. So again, I'm gonna create a new material, select that to be as a standard legacy. We can select everything with Ctrl A and apply that to our model. So this will be the car. The size of the car should be roughly the true scale. So I'm just gonna box a car like the car like this, and we're gonna see the length will be 4700 millimeters. So this is the correct dimension. Okay, now to get started with the car, I will also ask you to texture it. So for example, if you want to add a logo, let's search Mitsubishi logo. I'm going to search for this one. It's important to have some white around your model, because when you're going to try to texture it directly within 3ds Max, that texture will be patterned. So for example, this image has that white outline. I'm going to save this on the desktop. I'm just going to call it logo. If I'm gonna go back to 3ds Max, I'm gonna select the second material, and I will change this to be a standard legacy, change the diffuse map to be again a bitmap, and we're gonna have that over here. And I can change, I can select maybe the hood of the car, have that applied. We're gonna see that this will be shaded like this, so we see that the texture is being stretched. So we are gonna go again on modify, UVW map, and as soon as you're gonna add that, the mapping should be planar, but in this case we're gonna see that the Mitsubishi motor text will not be visible. So I can select the gizmo for the texture, press R for the scaling tool, and I'm gonna slightly make this smaller, and we're gonna see how that texture will pattern once again at the bottom. So I have the possibility to either increase this, change it, so maybe I'm gonna leave it like this, so we're gonna have the text readable in this case. You can also do the mapping in other, let's say, methods. Now for the interaction of the car, we're gonna create maybe one of the door to be open. So I'm gonna create a new layer again, just like we did with the building. I'm gonna select the top part, create new layer. This will be again the roof, but in this case for the car. If I'm gonna have that hidden, we're gonna see that you're gonna have a dark black part at the top. This is because these are surface and they are only shaded from one side. So if I'm gonna press F9 to have this rendered, I'm gonna see that I will see the interior of the car. This is because the normals of the model are flipped. In this case, I'm just gonna select this and I'm gonna add the selection of current layer. I'm gonna do the same with other elements regarding the top of the car, also maybe the mirror. I highly encourage you to texture the interior. You can search for some reference. So Evo Lancer 10 interior. You're gonna see some photos, and maybe you can extract various buttons from the navigation panel for the for other elements. Okay, and if you want to animate the door, if I'm gonna select the door and I'm gonna press E for rotate, I'm gonna see that all the doors will be rotating. So we're gonna need to have those ungrouped. I'm gonna select the doors, go to modify, and I'm gonna choose element. This will be the hotkey number 5. So if I'm gonna press on 1 from the, not from the numpad, from the other line of numbers, 2 will be edges, 3 will be borders, 4 will be faces. So this will allow me to select individual faces. If I'm gonna press F4, I'm gonna see the wireframe of the model. And if I'm gonna go with element, I will see that I can select that element. And with this selection done, I'm gonna make this modify window larger, and I'm gonna have this detached. I'm gonna call this door front. Click OK. And now we're gonna see we have the possibility to only interact with that section of the door. I'm gonna do the same for the other components. You can also isolate some of your selection. If I'm gonna press Alt and Q, this will isolate the selected object. In this case, again, I'm gonna go to modify, go for element, and I want those section plus this one to be detached. You can have those detached automatically named to object 1 if you're not gonna animate a lot of them further within the project. And now if I'm gonna press again Alt Q, this will close the isolation and I'm gonna see all the objects. I'm gonna do the same over here. So Alt Q to make those hidden, press 5, select that one, detach, OK. We can also do the create button. So now we have this object is separated, the other three are still linked. If I'm going to press again Alt Q, this will end the isolate and I'm going to see all the models. If you want, you can add transparency by selecting an object and pressing Alt and Alt X. This will allow you to add transparency. You can do that for the front lights and also for the back. So we're gonna have that better visualize. Okay, now for the door handle, again isolate, Alt Q, 5, select the element. This will be divided into two, so have those both detached. Alt Q again as for selection. For this one, I'm going to select this one, again detach, so they will no longer be connected. And let's see if we have anything else. For the car exterior, no, we have all the elements selected, but we still have the interior. So I'm going to Alt Q to isolate that, select this one, detached, and now we can have those linked. So I'm going to select the door handle, the mirror cover over here. This will be another component that we see that it's still linked over there. The window, and have those select and link to the car. So that will be that element. And now if I'm going to try to rotate, I'm going to see that this should rotate like this. It's not rotating from the intended pivot point, but they are linked. The components are linked. Select the plastic cover of the mirror and have this again detached. Select and link that to the door. And now let's adjust the pivot point for the door. So I'm gonna go to hierarchy, affect pivot, and now if I'm gonna go on select and move, I have the possibility to position that pivot point that I will want to have that pivot point position somewhere over here. And now if I'm gonna press E for rotate, go to local axis, we have the possibility to open the door like this, but we still have the interior of the car to be added to that selection. So in order to do that, I will hide this locally. So right click on the glass, we can click hide selection, or I would do the same by clicking on this. So this will be the object, but this will be so door front will be the object controlling the animation, and I can hide it either like this or right click, hide selection. With that selection hidden, I have the possibility to select and link the interior of the car to the exterior. And if I'm gonna try to do that animation, I will have the possibility to open the door like this. So I'm just gonna unhide that. So in order to, let's say, do the same animation also for the back, there will be a lot of selections over here as well. So I would like this, the logo of the car again to be detached, the one from the back to the one in the front. Over here we have additional logos regarding the brand of the car and the model, and we're going to have those select and follow the trunk. I'm going to go on modify, and I will also adjust the pivot point of the trunk somewhat like this. And now if I will try to open the trunk, it should open like that. Have those two bottom elements linked to that as well. And now we still have a lot of elements to link. So select the taillight glass, have that isolated, press 5, and have those two inner components detached. After that, have those selected and follow the trunk. And now we see that we have the interior I'm gonna hide this for now. Select the interior plastic. Have that also detached, selected and detached. And with that selection done, link it again to the trunk. And we have another isolation over here to be done. So select that, detached. Again for this one, we have those elements to be detached. And now have those again select and linked. We can also hide them if we already linked those. And over here we still have some elements to detach, so that one, let's see. I'm still on select and link, so go for selection, those two, detached, have those. It's important for select and link to select the one that you are linking from towards the other one. And for this also as well. Now if I'm gonna have those rotated, I'm gonna see that only this needs to be linked, that one as well, and we're just gonna have those lamps still not linked. So hide this one as well, isolate all those lights, and I'm gonna detach 3x3. I think it's 3x3 in this case, I'm not sure. Let me rapidly see that. Okay, so it's only 2x2. So press 5, those two, detached. And with those selected, select and link them over there. And we're gonna do the same over here. If I'm gonna animate this, I'm gonna see that those lights will still be over there. So have those also selected and linked to the car trunk. And now we have the possibility to open a trunk. I will unhide everything, so right click, unhide all. Yes, even the one from the roof. We have the car prepared for the animation. We can open the door, we can open the trunk. So let's do the animation of the car. I'm gonna change the time configuration. I will go for time display for the second option. So we see that by default we have 100 frames. I'm just gonna scale this down up to 3 seconds, so this will be 90 frames. Now we select the car, auto key, set keys. After that I will toggle all the way to the back, and with the angle snap enabled, by default it should be at 5 degrees. I'm gonna open the front passenger door minus 60 degrees over here like this. I'm gonna uncheck the auto key, and we have the animation for the car door opening done. So let's see, in order to have this transfer to Unity and also have that texture, I'm gonna, if I would have multiple cars over here, I could just rectangle select this, file, export selected, but since I only have this object within the scene, I can go directly to file, export, and I'm gonna call this car door. So we know that this is the car door animation. I'm gonna go on save, and if I want to transfer the animation, it's important that I will check the animation, and also we're gonna have the possibility to bake the animation over here. We also see that within this new version 2024 we have the extra option to use the scene name, so I'm gonna go with that, and I'm gonna click OK. The other selection for the embedded media should be done over here, so it's already checked because I did that previously with the showroom. So I have that FBX exported, it will be this file. If I will double click on that, Microsoft 3D Viewer should open the file. We're gonna see that this will be the animation, and we see that we have a looping animation over here within the viewer. So with that model, select it, drag and drop it, bring it within Unity. This will be the car model. Again, if you don't see the texture over here, you can just extract texture, select the same folder, and those should also appear. So I'm gonna drag and drop the car over here. I will slightly adjust the position of the car, so it will be on the top of the platform. And now, in order to define those animations, we're gonna see that we're gonna have this take 001. This will be the door animation that we previously defined. I can check the animation over here by pressing the play button. And in order to have control of those, let's say on dot animation, we can use the predefined button from SteamVR. So if you're gonna go over here, we're gonna have this hover button. You can either select it over here, press F, that should zoom in on that button. And if you wanna do a duplicate of this, you can either right click and have the possibility to clone it. So we're gonna have this duplicate button. We're gonna have a new instance with the one in brackets, and we're just gonna reposition this by pressing W to have control over the translation. And we're gonna take the button within the middle of the showroom. We're gonna see that we will also have to rotate this, so minus 90 degrees. And I'm gonna position the button. I'm just gonna move it in those two axes, so over here, and after that a little bit on the y-axis, so that the button will not hover, so like that. I'm gonna slightly also rotate it, and if you want to duplicate again, you can press Ctrl D. This will again do a quick duplicate of that button. So those will be the two buttons. We also have a text information over here that we can change. So we see that within the hover button we have a title canvas, which is that one, the 2D canvas, rectangular shape, and we have a text. So I will call this open door, and for this button I'm gonna add in close door. Now, in order to control the animation, we're gonna need to define an animator. So to create an animator, I'm gonna position it over here with the 3D models, right click, create. It will be an animator controller. So this will be for the car. I will open that animator controller by double clicking on this object, and we're gonna see that we have the scene, game, asset, and now we have the animator scene at the top. You can always go back to the scene. So we see over here we have any state, entry and exit. So within the entry state will be the animation played automatically when the simulation is started. I'm gonna right click, create a new state, empty. This will be the idle animation, so I'm just gonna call this idle when nothing happens, so idle. And we have those two animations for the car. So I say two because we're also gonna have the door close. So I'm gonna drag and drop this take one. I'm gonna duplicate this or drag and drop it again. It will be the same. So we're gonna have, initially this will be called door open. It's important over here with the casing number, so it will be uppercase. You should copy that within the final button animation. So this will be called closed door, and for the closed door we're gonna have -1 speed, that means that we're going to have a reverse animation. So we have the naming of those buttons done. We're going to go on the scene. We are going to select the car. So we are going to select, it's called like this, car door. And for this one, I'm going to add a component. I'm going to add an animator. And over here we have the controller. We can either select on that circle, and we can select from existing animators within the scene. Over here we have this car animator that we just defined, or you can also drag and drop. So you can do the same, drag and drop that car animator over there. I'm also going to apply root motion, so we know that the animation will be played over here locally. In some cases it's not needed, but usually it's recommended to have that also checked. And now for the buttons, I'm going to select the open door button, and we're going to see multiple components over here. I'm going to minimize the mesh filter for the cube, the box collider, the interactable also, and it's important to have this hover button script expanded. And we're going to see over here on button down, so that means when the top cube will collide with the bottom one, what kind of animation do you want to play. Over here I'm going to drag and drop the 3D model, so it's currently named for me car door, but this is the name of my car. Okay, so have that drag and dropped over here. And since on this component, on this 3D model, I already added an animator, I'm gonna have the possibility on the button to go on button down. So over here we have no function, but we're gonna have the possibility to choose an animator, and we are gonna play a string, and the value should be added over here. In order to add that value, that string value, it should be the same with this one. So this will be door open. Go back over here, this will be door open. For the closed door, we see that by default we don't have that animator, since we don't have the 3D model with the animator control added to this button. So again, drag and drop that car door over here, go to animator, do a play string, and in this case the naming of that should be closed door, and I'm gonna position that name over there. We're also gonna have an effect playing when the button is pressed. The SteamVR buttons will spawn a flower, so let's take a look at that. We have for the open door, we see that the door is not open. I'm gonna go over here. We see that a flower spawned. That means that we had the button pressed once. This is by default added to SteamVR, so you can better visualize the button interactions. So we press that multiple times, and we see that we have the door open. And for the closed door, it should be the same. So I'm just gonna move my mouse over that button. I will slightly push it down, and we see that one flower spawned. At the same time, we had that door closed. So again, open door, a new flower, a blue flower spawned, and we can do that close. Let's do the animation for the trunk as well. Since you already have that added and already prepared in 3ds Max, I'm gonna select the trunk. Now I'm gonna delete the existing initial animation, since we don't want to have this added to that scene again. And now I see that I no longer have that door animation. In order to do that, it's just important to have the object selected. So currently, since there are no objects selected, I don't have any animation on the timeline. But if I will try to play the animation, I will see that the front door will open. So have that selected, this one, and as soon as you select that, you're gonna see the animation on the bottom. do a rectangle selection, have that deleted, and we are gonna focus on the trunk. And for the trunk, you can see that we have no animation in the scene now. Auto key set key all the way up to 3 seconds. I would want the trunk to be open, I don't know, maybe 30 degrees. You can also adjust the pivot point, but it's important not to do that with the auto key. So let me slightly adjust this pivot point over here. So I see that it's all the way to the back, so I'm gonna elevate that, and now we're gonna have the animation move like this. This will be much better trunk animation. So we are at frame 0, have that selected, auto key, set key, go all the way to the 0.3 seconds, and now if I have the toggle for angle added, I can just rotate this maybe 40 degrees, so this will open the trunk like this. It will slightly levitate over there, so you can also adjust that, but we don't have all those components added. And I see that this object will not follow, so I can go all the way to the start of the animation, and I can make sure that this object will also follow by having this selected. So it's called car trunk lead 1. Select also the car trunk, press Alt Q in order to have those two isolated, and now I just need to link that small part to that. So even though the animation was already created, the two pieces should go along like that. Okay, so we have that open. We see, okay, so that is from the car suspension, so shouldn't be a problem. Okay, now we have this animation ready. I'm just gonna go again to File, Export, and since our initial 2D model was called car door, I'm gonna call this car trunk, since we know that this will be the animation of the trunk. Again, I will check that I have animation and also bake animation checked. Click on OK. Now go back where you have your file stored. For me it will be this file. Have that drag and dropped within the Unity project and position that, you can do it within the same folder. So this will be the trunk animation. If I'm going to expand this by clicking on the arrow, I'm going to see that this will also have an animation called take 001, and this will be our trunk animation. This is why it's important to have the pivot point adjusted before you do the animations, since you are going to use the same model. So we're going to see if the door will be any change, but since we didn't change that pivot point only for the trunk, shouldn't be any problem over here. So this will be take 001. I'm just gonna go to the animator, and we're gonna drag this animation to that same animator, and I'm gonna call this, you can call it trunk open. You can also change for choose to only add some words. You can also type in only one letter, or you can go with integer with a number, but it's important usually to do a proper naming for those animation if you're gonna have a lot of animation for a model. So this will be the trunk open. You see 1 and -1, and we can go back to the scene and we can copy those buttons. So we're gonna have the hover button 1, Control D. I'm gonna move this over there. For the close one, again, Control D and duplicate that. And we're gonna have this called, so we're gonna go for the text, trunk open. For the other one, trunk close. And in order to do those animation, we just gonna slightly need to change the naming over here. So we know that the trunk open name was this one, and I'm gonna add that as the value for that animator play, and for the trunk close will be this one, and I'm gonna position that over there. I'm gonna start the simulation, and we're gonna see that again. I'm gonna unpause that. So let's take a look. Door open. This should open that door. It works as intended. We see the interior of the car, so this will be regarding the double-sided for the materials. Since the normals are not inverted, we're gonna have that same to the trunk. If I'm gonna go to trunk open, we see a flower spawned, and we're gonna have the possibility to see that car trunk, but since we have those materials only rendered within one direction, we're gonna see the interior, the outside, and we're gonna have the trunk close. That will close the animation. Let's see, it stopped over there. So trunk open, trunk closed. So it's not closing to the desired location because I changed that pivot point. When I created the second animation, I slightly changed the pivot point for this. So in order to have this fixed, it would be best to rewrite also the animation for the door opening and use this 3D model with the pivot point changed. So as you recall, we adjusted that pivot point, so let me redo the door animation. So go to auto key, set key, all the way to third frame, third second. Let me open this again 60 degrees, and I'm gonna have this again exported. I'm gonna use the same car door model, so the same naming, and I'm gonna have that written over here within Unity. So we should have over here the car door, have the model overwritten, and let's take a look. So the model should have been changed. If I'm gonna just play the animation, we should not redo all the links, but if not, we are gonna do those. If we're just gonna have that trunk not open properly. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna have the trunk open like that, and we're gonna have the trunk closed. Let's see if the model will now go as intended. But no, we still gonna have to redo that car. So I'm just gonna delete the existing car since I changed those pivot points. And we see over here we have a car door one. So we're gonna use this one that we just recently changed. We're gonna add an animator for this, and this should also be controlled by the car animator. And now, since we have those set up, we should be able to replay the simulation. And let's take a look. Car open door. Okay, so the link. Okay, so the link is not done because we have this car door one added now. So we're just gonna need to go on the buttons. So for button down, we're gonna have this one again with the function. This why it's important not to have the model exported if you haven't managed to, or if you decide to change some of the pivot point. So we're gonna have this again as a string. So those we no longer have to copy all of those, but we need to position the model and the animator string, and we have the naming already added from the previous model, but now it should work as intended. So let's take a look. Accept all. I'm gonna end the pause. So open door, this should open the door, and the door is not offsetted. Close the door, this should close the door. And let's see for the trunk, since this was the problem, we're gonna have the trunk open and we're gonna have the trunk close. Okay, so keep in mind, if you're gonna have those slightly offset problems, do not adjust the pivot point, and if so, you should re-export your animation in order to compensate for that pivot point change. Now, for some of the changes that you can add over here, you can create a new material. For example, for the glass elements, you can choose this one, and you can go for a transparency material, maybe with a slight tint, and you can position that onto the car. You're gonna see that this doesn't have enough transparency, and we can slightly have that increased. So this should have that material added. But we also should add a double material for our scene. I'm gonna position that. I will see that the material is set to transparent. We should have some of those, but we should also change this transparency. Okay. So remember, the rendering mode should be set to transparent. Therefore, if you added some texture for the car navigation and stuff like that, those will also be visible, and you can use the same for the headlights in front. You can create additional materials over here also. In order to compensate that rendering, so when we open the trunk, the material is not visible, we can make use of an asset. So it's called Unity Asset Store. It's called double-sided material. It should be a free asset. Let me see exactly. Double-sided material free. If not, I'm just gonna show you what is that named, so you don't have to write your own shader. It will be this one. So free double-sided material shader. We can have this also added. It will be this one. We see I already have this added to my asset, but over here I'm not logged. But you can also add it, and after that you can have this imported. You're gonna have that checked, and we can change the shading of our material now. So this will be the standard shader, free double-sided. I'm gonna go with a new material, create new material. Let's say, for example, maybe I would like this car to be, for example, green, but we're gonna have to change the shader. So it's like this standard, but now since we added additional, we also added this Ciconia Studio. This is the double-sided material. I can have that checked as a built-in, as a standard. Okay, I will go with a cutout, and I will change it afterwards. But let's see, like this. So double-sided, we want to have that on. So let's test the shader. This should fix that that shading from the interior. So we have the trunk open, And we see over here we're gonna have that let's say we don't gonna have the material render, but for the trunk we're gonna have that render. And I can apply the same shader over here as well. If I'm gonna go for the back of the car, for this back bumper, I can also apply the same material, so it will be this material. You can copy that. So we're gonna have copy material like that, and we can position it over here, or we can drag and drop the material that we just created, so it will be this one. If I'm gonna go for all of those in the back, now if I'm gonna open the trunk, I'm gonna see that the material will be visible from both directions. So again, trunk open, and we are no longer gonna have that visibility, let's say, issue. And you can further change additional materials to have this double-sided face. You can also close those spawning points for the flower. You're gonna have the possibility to do that. We have this flower point. If you're gonna have this unchecked, those flowers will no longer be visible, so they will no longer spawn. And let's see, what can you additionally create? You can create a video that will start again at the press of the button. So if you're gonna go to game object, create plane. Again, this doesn't have that double-sided material, so the plane is only visible from the top direction. I'm gonna have this rotated, so minus 90 degrees, and I will position the plane over here, like it would be a video, let's say, support. And in order to add a video to the scene, you're gonna add a component for this plane. It will be called video player, and over here you're gonna have the possibility to select a video. You can just do a screen record and have that added over there. Okay, let's see if I will have a small video already recorded. I'm not sure if I have, so let's see. No, so I don't have, and the problem is that if I'm gonna stop this this recording, that will no longer work. But the workflow should be like this. So you're gonna import the file. I highly recommend to bring an MP4 over here, and afterwards we're just gonna duplicate another button. Let's call this play animation. So play video, and over here on this button we're just gonna replace the car, so we're no longer gonna go for car 2. We're gonna go for this plane. You can also rename this plane video. With the button selected, you're gonna move that over here, and we're gonna have the function video player. You can choose it to be play. You will no longer have to input anything, because this plane video will automatically take the video added over here as a clip. So you can just right click and import a new asset and have that video loaded. I highly recommend that you go on YouTube, you go with a screen recorder, you're gonna take that video and you can add it within your scene. We already did that in class. So I also hope that you managed to understand the workflow regarding this. What will be also important to pay attention to the rotation of the video, because maybe the video will be slightly rotated 90 degrees. So maybe the correct orientation will be like this, so 90. And also regarding the aspect ratio, most videos are 16:9. So you're gonna have that also rescaled like this. Okay, some additional changes. We also discussed this. We can add some lines. For example, a spotlight. Maybe we want to add that to the car. So we're gonna slightly reposition this to be like that. I highly recommend that you will go in top view when you position the lights. If you're gonna position that directly on the car, we can also go to orthographic like this. So this will be way easier to center elements. You're gonna have the possibility to increase the spot angle and also the range of the light. So something like this with a 55 should give us some more light within the environment. And now we're gonna have this area lit. You can also choose to duplicate those lights, and if you want to, you can try to have them align with the pre-existing light 3D models within the scene, so something like that. But again, over here I recommend that you go into this orientation, so by clicking on those, and we're gonna position this light over there. We can also slightly have that rotated, and we're gonna see that the light will emit from that area. You can also duplicate that, position one again over here, but we're gonna have this slightly rotated since the geometry for that is also again rotated, so you're gonna have to position that accordingly. You can slightly change that that value for the area. Okay, and I highly encourage you to use also your own 3D model for a car. So you can go on CatNav like this. You can search for cars. You're gonna see a lot of 3D models. It's important that you are searching for either FBX files like this one. You're gonna go on download and download URL. This will start that file to be downloaded. And before you get started, I highly recommend that you analyze the car to see how exactly it was modeled. So have that drag and dropped within 3ds Max, have it positioned, and check if it's easy to work with. For example, select the doors, have those isolated, go on element selection, and you're gonna see that I can detach this. I can also select the others. In this case, I will no longer detach the others since I just want to have those selected and linked to the door, but I will detach those that are on the other side, so only this one, have those detached. And now with those selected, I'm gonna link them to the door. And for the door, again, we're gonna need to adjust the pivot point. We can do this best from the views. So the pivot point should be somewhere over there. Hit create after you finish that, and you can start animating. So this 3D model is quite easy to animate. You can also try to do an exploded view, where you're gonna have some of the elements of the car. For example, the tire, I'm gonna go with animation auto key, for example, all the way here. You can change the pivot point to the center, so have the tire exploded. After that, have the rims of the tire also exploded. You're gonna select that brake disc, have that also exported, translated, sorry. And slightly you can do the same for all the elements of the car. And within the animation you can add an assemble, disassemble animation for the car. You can have that exported, and you can have a quite interesting animation. So similar to the one that we discussed, YouTube, Hyundai, let's see, I think it's this video. Yeah, this is the video. So we can do an exploded view, something similar like this. If we're gonna have a detailed car, we're gonna have we can define a button for an exploded view that will position all those elements. And we can do various translation for the components. It's not mandatory that you only go on one axis, like I did with the wheels. So you can have something like this defined. Okay, so I hope you find this video useful in creating your project. You can also add additional elements that we discuss within the course, like level of details and some custom scripts if you want to. So feel free to change this showroom as you please and add various interaction elements. Okay, so I see that it's already 9, so this video is quite long. So thanks for watching. See you in the next video.